am so happy to see everybody today. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Really glad to be here. The cloud shifted from last week. It's much better today. But they were really adamant last week that I had to come on and say that even though there's sometimes a lot of density, that it's important to still be present and report and not reject self just because there's weather. Because we all have internal weather, and it's how we weather the weather that determines whether we are building the finest life we can or destroying it when the weather comes in, because we haven't really. No, we won't do it like that. We'll say that it's learning to negotiate the weather. And as you negotiate the weather better, you get more exposure to it. Because your sensitivity increases. And as we all know, that's both a good thing and a difficult thing. So, welcome this morning. Let's meditate. And we'll do our usual. I think everybody here knows it very well. So we'll do the Om sound in the 3 parts. And the first time we'll do it aloud 9 times, then whispering 9 times, then saying it into the 3 energy centers, the tip of the tailbone, the heart, and the 3rd eye, and watching it come up and out. And then the 4th time of 9, we just watch it move. So you don't have to sing the same pitch I do or do exactly the same speed that I do. Do what's right for your body, okay? Oh. Allow your eyes to open a little bit further. Hold your attention in your central channel as you adjust to the light. Allow your eyes to open all the way as they adjust. Still holding your energy in the central channel. And feel what it's like to be deeply in yourself and allowing the external information to come in at the same moment. And how different that might feel from your ordinary experience. How may we serve this morning? We're so delighted to be here. Everybody looks fantastic. So we're quiet, whatever you'd like to offer. We are going to remind you a little bit that when we do this practice, a few weeks ago, we said, please do it with your eyelids just a little bit cracked so that you don't completely lose connection with the outside world, because we're not going away from the world. We are training ourselves to be very present in a deep place inside ourselves as we go through the day, so that we're merging the state that we experience in meditation with our daily life, so that it's not either or, but it's both and. So having our eyes just open a crack so that we're still in this world, but not of it, is really good practice. How may we serve? I'm struggling with relationship with my daughter. well, we don't know the age difference here, but what we're feeling is there is a desire to change the relationship on the part of the daughter. She's 45. It's something to do with the power structure between the two of you. And her wanting to wanting to change that power relationship. So when something like this is happening, the thing to do is, of course, the Anasa temple. Because when there's a power struggle, there's just going to be a power struggle in the external. And two people are warring emotionally as they struggle for control is probably too strong a word, but it's something like that. So the thing to do from a spiritual perspective, the power over ourselves is the power we are most concerned about most of the time, unless we're in an oppressive situation. So the first thing is to be asked to be shown the optimal, where the equality, the fluidity, the flow, the perfect balance flow in the relationship is. And it has to do with, very often when these age gap things happen with people close to us, it's one person making assumptions about the life stage that they're in and sort of trying to force them on the other. And life stages are life stages. They're very different. And so the priorities are different and the worldview is different. So you can begin by being articulate about this in the Anasa temple and allow it to trickle into the field of the flow between the two of you without having to have a conflict. And it's possible that just that addressing the flow between the two of you energetically will readjust that delicate balance so that each person understands the other's perspective without having to speak it. And then over time, it can become a point of growth for the information to flow in a welcome way between the two of you. We hope that makes sense. Please let us know if we've completely missed the target or if, this is helpful. And any more questions that come from it. We're happy to talk about this because it happens to all of us in different areas of our relationship. We're constantly dealing with people that have a different worldview from ours. And the tendency for everyone in this world is to assume that we're speaking the same language to each other from the same information base. And that is 99.9% of the time completely not true. Even with the people that we're close to, especially the people that we're close to, because we assume that our experience is the same. But because we come from such diverse backgrounds in terms of matrix of belief, those assumptions are usually so far off that if we don't challenge our own assumptions in the relationship, we can really make some pretty big errors of judgment based on the assumption that our matrix of belief is the same as the other person's, when that can't possibly be true, because even if we grew up in the same environment, there's always an age difference, and the parents recalibrate their parenting in both helpful and unhelpful ways as they evolve as parents. And so even growing up in the same family, you can have completely divergent experiences of the same environment, which creates a very different matrix of belief. So our advice in this arena is to constantly imagine your constantly examine your matrix of belief and inquire as to the especially feeling experience of the other person, so that you begin to create more and deeper flow between the two of you, and understand, assuming always that the other person's matrix of belief is different, so that you have room in your own experience to inquire and make space for something that has never even occurred to you as a possibility in the other person's matrix of belief. And it can happen in very, very subtle ways, that we make assumptions and then critical judgments inside of ourselves about the other person, because they're behaving in a standard that we would find unacceptable in ourselves. And so we judge them, having no information about where that's coming from in them. And so as they have bigger and bigger experience in their lives, it's important that we expect and respect the fact that their matrix of belief will constantly be shifting in their own evolution. The poster says, "It makes sense. I am working in the Anasa temple, and it feels like past life more than this life." Oh, well, yes, this does happen. That, this brings in the whole role of karma, and that we attract experience to resolve that which is disharmonious within us that we cannot see. And especially as we make our fundamental purpose to be evolutionary inside ourselves, then we willingly embrace that which we have not yet seen. And so when you feel into a relationship and you know that it has to do with karma from a different life, ask to be informed about that which you have not yet seen. And you do this in the Anasa temple, and you just wait for the answer. And very often the answer will not come while you're in the Anasa temple, but it's important that you take yourself there to ask the question, and you create the space to receive the answer. And while you're doing laundry or sweeping the floor or mowing the grass, working in the garden, something that you do that frees your mind, the answer will just float in. And you'll be like, oh, that's what this is about. So it's about creating a field of receptivity inside yourself for what you have not yet seen. You have seen that it's karmic, which is a very big deal. That's the first step. And then the second is, what is it that I need to know? And that's the question, what have I not seen? And you just give yourself time. The times when human beings get themselves into the most trouble is when they're reactive. When there is an urgent need to say something to someone now. And we know it's coming from a place of agitation in ourselves. And we can't hold it. That's when we spill the drink. And it's okay, because it's about flow. And so you dance with that. You take responsibility. You be honest. And you dance with the flow, because it's about the flow itself. And, sometimes we make it go kind of crooked. And that's okay, because that's how we learn. And, we've said this many, many times, but we learn by our failures. And so failure is not, it's not even the right word. We learn from experience, but it's the experience where we kind of get it going cockeyed that teaches us the most. And so, we do the best we can to avoid making things go cockeyed in our relationships. But growth is about really working deeply in yourself and hopefully attracting a partner who is doing same, and other people in our lives who are all really working on their internal evolution. And that creates a life of partnership in evolution, whether it be siblings, partners, significant others, children, parents, all our relationships. The phrase, all our relations, everything we do to expand all our relations, to be in communication, and we hope helpful. Thank you so much. Good explanation. Thank you. And interestingly, it gives us a different perspective if we assume that every relationship we have attracted into our lives is for our own karmic benefit. It's for us to learn about ourselves. And so, a lot of us come to spirituality because we want to avoid more pain. And yet we understand, after we've been at it for a while, that embracing our pain is really how we grow. It's not the only way we grow, but it's the most difficult. And in allowing our pain to touch us and reorganize us, we become completely different people over and over and over. Because we allow the information about the false matrix of belief that we hold to change us and expand our matrix of belief, which allows our inner feeling experience to become larger. We are able to hold contradictions. For example, the contradiction that occurs when somebody we love deeply is misbehaving according to our standard. To hold that contradiction and understand that love and approval are not the same. And one way to do this is to reward good behavior. And ignore bad. And that works in a way. But this is a contradiction that we'll face over and over in our lives. And the response will vary according to how much information we have and according to our role in this situation. But this is one that we all face over and over. And, our own internal work can be simple. We're constantly creating more flow within ourselves, no matter what happens outside of us. We are creating more love. Always. And love begins with self. We cannot love another unless we love ourselves. And that's That's an ongoing, it's an ongoing endeavor. Because most of us in this culture are taught that to love ourselves is to risk supporting our own unsupportable behavior. And that's not what loving ourselves means. We're loving the capital S self inside ourselves, our highest self. And that solves the whole problem of, our job. Self-acceptance, when it demands perfection, denies evolution in a certain way, because we are constantly experiencing our falling short of what we intend. And so we have to learn not to punish ourselves when that happens, because then we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot when we're already behind. And so then there's this self-rejection in addition to kind of missing the mark. So this is what we're talking about when there's density, to be very careful about self-rejection. So this holding of opposite, contrary experiences also happens in ourself. When we fail, we need more love, not less. So when we reject ourselves, we cut ourselves off from our own source. So to sit and allow the self-judgment to be present and felt as pain of self-rejection, and breathing into it and allowing it, ho'oponopono, until we can breathe again and come into that self-acceptance. And if we talk about love as flow, then maybe it makes a little bit more sense. Love as accessed to the deepest part of ourselves. Then that takes it out of the realm of the psychological. How does that feel? So the most important thing required is self-honesty. And the willingness to tend to the flow within ourselves. This is maybe the most precise way we've ever talked about it. But everybody here has enough experience inside themselves to feel whether there's flow or not. And when that becomes the guidepost, then we're in a whole different dimensionality of our humanity. and our feeling sense comes down to our heart rather than being stuck between our ears. And then as that expands, they communicate differently. No longer in opposition. Yes. Mm. No room for self-judgment here. Just allow yourself to experience. But see how quick we are to say, oh, I can't feel that, so therefore I'm less than. Not true. Not true. A more appropriate way is I'm not quite allowing myself to have this experience. And that's also okay, but it's not judgment. It's just, oh, let me see if I can sink into this experience of allowing my heart to expand and my head to be a little bit quiet. Yeah, that's it. Hmm. How may we serve further?
Hi, this is Paul.
Hi, Paul. How you doing?
Um, Trying to process all the shit that's going on in the world right now, and I find it, the shootings back to back. And you speak of not being of this world, but in it, and I get that, but just having a real hard time processing this string of shootings. Find myself, people talk about mentalize this, dealing with this. I don't even know what to call it. I don't know how to handle it. It's incomprehensible to me. So I find it extremely disjointing, and
Well, one thing that's happening is that we, on a daily basis, receive so much bad news because we receive all the bad news of the world because that's what people want to know. We're very lucky here in this moment that we are not having to struggle for survival. We're not having to run for our lives and have for the most part, our life be about putting food on the table and being safe. This is what gives us the luxury to have these moments of reflection. We can all acknowledge that many people in the world don't get this. And so to have it for a period in our lives is a great gift. And it's again holding contradictions in oneself. We have this great gift of the moment. Is our best way to use it gnashing our teeth about the sorrows of others? We all do it. We all do it some of the time, and it's compassion. We feel what's happening. Do we destroy our own inner lives because of it? We hold the awareness of it. We allow it to be. We feel our gratitude for our own safety at this moment. We pray for those and send love to those who can't be here. And we open ourselves as deeply as possible to be a reservoir of that which changes lives. We hold the contradiction. This is called equanimity. We hope that answers your question. We can't deny because then we're not telling the truth.
it speaks to the question. It's one hell of a contradiction to hold on to. That's all I got to say about that.
Well, that's
It's a
called
tough
life.
one. It's a tough one. And so the yeah, the grief, try to compartmentalize, try to open your heart, but the I don't know, waves of grief just spontaneously come up, and just I guess just go with the flow on that one. So thank you.
Waves of grief alternating with waves of love. Understand, grief is love and turned inside out. So we are not denying by allowing ourselves to experience flow. Because it's the experience of flow that will transform. It's not rejecting ourself in the face of someone else's pain. Or in the face of our own. Which is very often what's being triggered. We're not personalizing this at all. But very often, when we experience the pain of others, it triggers our fear of having that same pain. And then that fear can immobilize us internally. So we ho'oponopono to our fear. Hello, fear. I'm safe in this moment. Thank you for coming. I love you. I'm sorry. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. As we connect to our deepest, highest, thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm sorry. I love you. Doesn't matter the order. We treat our highest self as the sacred beingness that it is. And it's not a mental act to hold the contradiction, but a spiritual one, to allow the flow, allow the expansion in the face of our pain and everyone else's. This is not compartmentalization, but the opposite. It's the allowing of the all that is. Everything that has ever happened is available inside us. We carry it in one way or another. Now, what is actualized and brought to life has to do with our own blueprint. And some people, it's in their blueprint to go off and fight a war, like Arjuna. Others of us, that's a more symbolic blueprint for the war that we're fighting inside ourselves. The other thing is, in the world, we cannot change that which we cannot see. The powers that have created the disharmony are not new. They are rising to be met with love. And we'll call that love flow so that we understand what we're talking about. Love is access to source energy. And it is holding to the flow as we go through our own darkness. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because thou art with me. Thy rod, which is the Sushumna, the central channel, and thy staff, which is the two sides of energy going next to the central channel, the Ida and the Pingala in Sanskrit. Thy rod and thy staff are with me. Thou preparest a table in front of me. This is abundance. Thou anointest my head with oil. This is the arising of the energy out the top of the head. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. It's there buried in every religion that has ever happened. But it gets distorted by people who want to control other people with fear. And so there are laws that are passed within the religion that are unlivable because it's about control rather than flow. Yes. How do I get clarity on what my matrix of belief is? By examining the disharmony that arises in you. By allowing it and allowing the understanding that is being challenged in you to actually be challenged and say, is this disharmony due to an assumption, a false assumption that I'm making? You know, fear is false evidence appearing real. And we all, as we said earlier, make assumptions that everything that we were taught when we came into this world is true, and that everybody that we meet holds the same truth. Not true. Even identical twins, not identical, fraternal. Identical is a different world. Fraternal twins, twins that don't share exactly the same genetics. They can be born 2 minutes apart and they have totally different lives, totally different belief systems. How can that be? It happens. So that's how we examine our matrix of belief. Life shows us through the disharmony where our assumptions may not be the same as another person's. Hmm. We would wish for a light question. Been pretty intense today. Hmm. So the symbol of the lotus, that's really what we're experiencing and talking about today. It's through the mud that the beauty is accessed. The vitality comes through the mud and makes this beautiful flower. So beautiful. And yet, as we grow, we experience everything. As the lotus does. We wish that it was all light and beauty and harmony. And certainly we have lots of experience of that. And we have its opposite. And we learn and we grow and we learn and we grow. And the flow begins to inform us deeply as we tend to it. So we have time for one more quick question, and then we'll meditate again. I guess we'll meditate again. So, like we ever stopped. I don't think anybody on this call ever stopped this morning. So, leave your eyes open a crack as we go back into the Om meditation. We won't actively do it this time, but allow you to do it. We're going to do open eye transmission during this meditation, so you can be available however you choose to be. So much love. So happy to be with you. From the depths of beingness. Thank you so much for coming today. It's been an enormous pleasure to be with you. Till next week.